Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome along to SimRacingOnline, the home of virtual motorsport. You join me, Ike Sky, for the last round of the Assetto Corsa Competizione FKR Tuesday Night Racing League at a shockingly wet Laguna Seca down in the Monterey area of California. Wasn't expecting this, I'm not going to lie. This qualifying session, a strange bout of rain falling on the circuit is going to throw the cat amongst the pigeons right from the very off. And it's only going to get worse from here. It's only going to get worse from here. Drivers are just coming out on their warm-up laps now. And we are following Santini on. I don't suppose this is less of a warm-up lap and more of a keep the tyres in as good nick as you possibly can lap. The drivers are going to be trying to take as little as possible out of those tyres. Out on the track, we do already have the Aston Martin of Williams, and that beautifully bright 22 livery. Circulating around, it looks like he's still coming up to his warm-up lap and getting a massive kicker oversteer again. Wet weather, this is not something that the drivers would have been expecting, and it's only going to separate the men from the boys as far as who can make the car work. So last round of the championship tonight, it seems as though Williams has got the championship all but sewn up. But that's not to say that there isn't everything to play for, especially further down the grid. The mid-pack, as we've seen the entire season, has been touch and go. Really very tight between all of the drivers, and it's ebbed and flowed from track to track. As 22 again getting a massive wiggle on out of turn 4, he says, with a bit of hesitancy in his tone. There we go. Balli is the man who is going to be chasing that Aston Martin in the number 12 Ferrari. If anyone can do it, it's going to be Balli. But can anybody rob Williams of the pole to start with? That's the first question of the evening. In traffic behind the NSX of, I would say that's Milliken. If I had to guess, I think he is the only Honda on the track. Oh no, Johansson as well in that number 9 car, which it looks like it was him. Not really getting as much traction off of the final corner as he would have liked. Lets Williams go, and that'll be a 1:32 to start with. Quite a lackluster first lap then for the champion-elect. But this should be one to watch. We'll jump on board with the Aston Martin, which is really annoyingly muted. Oh my goodness. What's going on there? See what we've got going on with the audio. Set that to about there. Hopefully that'll be a bit better for you. Raw nature of that V8 not quite coming through. Up towards the corkscrew now, and there is not a simulation in the world that can show just how steep and how undulating that track, that part of the track is. It's been pegged as one of the most legendary parts of any racetrack. I think the carousel at Nürburgring, Rouge and Radion at Spa. It's up there with the greats. And today it's soaking wet. I don't think I've ever seen it rain at Monterey, as Santini goes to the top in the 13 Ferrari with a 1.5 second deficit now to not the 22 of Williams, but the 75 of Geimer. Yet again, this track manages to throw the cat amongst the pigeons, and that was a slow lap for Geimer trying to get past Johansson, 5 seconds off the pace of the leader of Santini at the moment. So maybe the Santini's just worked it very, very well in the first half of this qualifying session, found himself some space and has worked his magic while he's got the time to. Williams getting caught up behind that NSX won't have helped him one bit, and now there's a yellow flag sector somewhere in the lap. I don't have the sectors up to be able to say that. Nope, but we go green again. They're just a small off probably for one of the competitors. We have eyes on Geimer, who is second to Santini at the moment, is going a 10th faster at the moment, but not a whole lot in it. 22 goes to the inside, takes to the gravel, trying to avoid. There is something very wrong tonight. Talviti, meanwhile, is half a second up in the 72 Porsche. Porsche's always hot in the rain. And is that a GT in front? No, it's Aston. Good looking livery, that. Talviti currently 0.8 of a second up. Now coming down towards the second to last sector, and the last hairpin of turn 11 is the only thing he has left to navigate before we find out what he's gonna get. Half a second would do wonders for his hopes. Across the line he goes third. Porsche to the second row of the grid. And again, this is one of those times when you have to wonder what the conditions in the race are going to hold for a Santini in that 13 car. Is absolutely unstoppable. Someone is very happy to be at this track. Coming up on traffic now in one of the Aston Martins. That's a 97 car of Wenham, who gets very wide to get out of the way of the leader. Still 2/10 up at the moment on his previous time, but loses that, it looks like, through the final hairpin. Not able to get the drive that he wanted. Onto a new lap he goes. This is his 5th lap, but meanwhile behind, coming through the last sector, is Geimer, almost a second, now a second up, coming into the final hairpin. What can he do? Can he bring the fight to the number 13 Ferrari? 75 car comes across the line with 1 minute and 10 seconds to go. He'll have this lap and no more, but the gap to first will come down to 0.6 of a second. Bit of a far cry from what we were looking at earlier in the race. Meanwhile, Williams has pulled himself to within 2 seconds of the leading lap time. Meanwhile, Talviti is going faster, 1.1 seconds as he comes across the line, will retake that 3rd place and put him within a spitting distance of Geimer, who is running a lot slower than his previous lap time. So we're going to stick with the 72 for the time being. Meanwhile, Balli is half a second up on his previous times. Not enough to challenge Talviti here, but possibly enough to start looking towards 4th or 5th at his current lap delta. Talviti does not need to gain too much time. He's a 10th up at the moment. That would guarantee him first row of the grid and sitting next to Santini in that number 13 Ferrari. Up towards the dip on the inside of turn... Oh, wide goes Talviti. That's a shame. Is he still... No, he's just lost that deficit. That's it. That's a real shame for Talviti there. But he's still a 10th up, coming down into the corkscrew. So, oh! Commentator's curse bites again, and Talviti spins at the corkscrew, parks the car on the outside, and that is the end of that. Meanwhile, Johnson coming up to the corkscrew Hopefully won't make the same mistake as the 72 behind. No, a beautiful camera angle as well there for Johnson in a very nice British Racing green and red accent liveried Aston Martin. 0.6 up at the moment on his previous time. That would be enough to secure him fourth if he can just nail the braking into the last hairpin. Front-engined Aston Martin, having all of the torque where and when it counts, is going to accelerate towards the line and takes fourth, just behind the Porsche of Talviti. A really good qualifying session there for Johnson. Absolutely crazy how the setups as the back end of the 14 goes to the sky. Oh, fantastic. There's some things that you just don't get in sim racing. That is just fantastic. So your starting grid for the final round of the SimRacingOnline Assetto Corsa Competizione FKR racing from Laguna Seca, or WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca as it is known, will have the number 13 Ferrari of Matteo Santini leading away. Beside him will be Simon Geimer in the Mercedes AMG. Third place in the first of the Porsches will be Tony Talviti, and Mark Johnson will take the second row of the grid. Roberto Balli, the first of our championship contenders, leading from his main rival Andrew Williams, who is in the lead at the moment, but that could all change. It's just one bad race away. 7th will be Simone Miezza, Bill Grucock in 8th. 9th will be Ali Calgar. Andy Yates will be starting 10th. Stephen Wenham will be starting 11th. 12th will be John Johansson. 13th will be Rob Milliken. And 14th will be Roger Hines, who is displaying currently as being out, so maybe had a disconnect in the note. Seems to be happy there in 14th at the moment. The engines rise, as I think that's the Mercedes has readied up, as the rest of the drivers all just trying to get their setups happy and cozy. A mere 7 seconds and then half an hour of sprint racing is what we have to look forward to here. We're going to keep eyes on Tony Talviti. Pending a good start for him, there is a lot that he can do from the inside of the second row of the grid. He will have an advantage over that Mercedes AMG as well as we start coming down through the corkscrew. What an awful place to start the shortened warm-up lap. As you can see, the drivers have to somehow negotiate 2 by 2. I dread to think how much of a nightmare that causes for all the drivers, as we do seem to have some kind of... Yep, there is a Porsche off in the back. Hines there, hanging back a bit it seems. But it's also looking to me as well as though the rest of the drivers are behaving themselves quite nicely. Very courteous and respectful lineup here at the moment. Eyes on that 22 car as well around the outside of the Andretti hairpin. That double apex left-hander is going to be an action point throughout the race. Whether it's overtaking or lapping, the 75 car races up to the side of the Ferrari. As the lights are red at the moment, you'll see green at the top of your screen. And now we go racing. A massive gap for the Porsche will put pay to any kind of attack there, but the AMG gets a tremendous launch. Maybe Santini was just caught napping slightly, but the Ferrari better under brakes. The Mercedes goes around the outside, sticks with it. We have to have a look further down the grid. Everyone's through there cleanly. The 22 car gets pushed off wide just slightly. They still go too wide into turn 3. But all is fair in love and war as the 24 car of Yates is getting shoved about off the racing line. Ferrari in front as we look at the 22 car, who has just a bit of space. The Aston Martin of Grucock gets pushed off wide by the Ferrari. A bit rude there, but we come up to the top of the corkscrew for the first time, and the Ferrari leads the way. So they come through as they started. Ferrari, Mercedes, Porsche, Aston Martin. Williams has gotten to 5th from his starting position there. As the 75 goes wide, gets a massive tail slap and just manages to hold it in line. But the Porsche has made the place. That is Talviti to 2nd in the first lap of the race. And now a gap of 1.5 seconds does Santini have, and that's not through pace, that is purely through the 75 making that mistake, as the 14 slightly outbrakes itself, just maybe the front engine of Johnson's car pulling him out to have a wide line through turns 1 and 2. Perfectly legitimate line, but may not be the quickest way for each of the cars to take. As Johnson is under pressure from the number 11 Porsche behind. Don't know if the 11 has the pace to actually put pressure on the 14, but he's definitely there in his sights. What else has happened here? Where has Balli gone? What has happened to Balli? Carrying no damage that I can see from there, but losing positions down the field. I'm just trying to pick up, see if there's anything around that Ferrari that could point to why he's lost some positions, but maybe just got crowded out. He was on the outside of the track at the start, at the... no, he was on the inside. So perhaps crowded towards the apex and just wasn't able to get the power down. So a shame for Balli at the start of the race, but towards the front, Geimer just stretching a lead out. Sorry, just losing to Talviti is what I was trying to say. Meanwhile, Santini will get some camera time on him now for the time being, because it looks as though that 13 car is just disappearing off into the distance ever so slightly. The Ferrari very slippery around this medium speed Laguna Seca raceway. Is going to suit the handling of that car, and I'm sure it's Santini's preference being out here as well. Being out in the clear with a 2.2 gap to your next competitor is definitely a good place to be. Kaglar has fallen away. No, he hasn't. Johnson has fallen away with some damage on that number 14 car. Where on earth has he gotten that? Oh, off into the wall he goes. And it was... I had a feeling it might be. The 11's gone for an overtake up the inside. No, just the 14 car getting way too tight. Actually tapped the 11 in his own accident and contacted the wall. Lucky not to have lost more places there at the moment. Just fallen behind the championship leader. But that number 14 car no longer showroom shiny, as the gap out the front of the field seems to be spacing itself quite a bit. Balli in the number 12 car has caught up to that now injured Heinz number 98 Porsche. Or is it Kaglar that was carrying damage? It was Kaglar that was carrying damage. So Heinz car is uninjured, but not quite up to the pace of Balli in the Ferrari. The Ferrari takes a much wider line, able to carry the speed, possibly looking for an overtake into the corkscrew. It's probably the next big stop that we're going to see on this track, and if the Ferrari has a reasonable speed advantage, but doesn't look like it at the moment. Just through that first sector, the Ferrari seems to hold on a little bit better, as behind that, Andy Yates goes massively wide through the corkscrew, stays off the racing line very politely, and is going to rejoin behind Grucock in that number 42 car, which we saw in strife at the start of the race. Johnson out on his own now as Hines goes defensive into the hairpin, but doesn't get the drive off the corner. The 12 goes to the outside. There's no grip out there, Balli. You're not going to find it out there. And back onto the track he comes. Will be squirreling all over the back of this Porsche, coming down into turn 1, looking for a way past as the 98 goes super defensive. Just aiming itself towards the inside of that first turn. That's not the way to get your lap times as low as possible, but it may well keep the Ferrari behind him for the time being. I can't see that happening with the 12 car being so aggressive though. And it breaking down into turn 6, I want to say I was wrong. That's 5. This is turn 6 coming up here. I used to love this kink. We'll get an onboard as we go around there at some point soon, because turn 6, that kink is beautiful to take when your car is feeling sorted. The Ferrari gaps just a little bit again, but is close coming through the corkscrew. No way they're going to be passing through there, but you can definitely get passes set up through here. Follow them nice and close down through Rainy Curve and then into turn 10, maybe on the brakes. Many times we've seen, especially with these GT3 cars, when the car's underneath you, you can be a lot more confident under the brakes into turn 10. As the 12 goes massively wide, trying to maintain as high a speed as possible, as Kaglar is looking to put pressure now on the 75 Mercedes. Geimer not having an ideal race. I'll tell you what, we'll use this as an excuse to jump on board with the Porsche. Down through turn 5, they're going to shift down into around 3rd or 4th, depending on the car and how much torque you've got. And now turn 6, underneath the barrier is where you want to stamp on the brake if you're going to be doing it, but you don't through here. You just let off, let the car drift around, use as much of the AstroTurf on the outside as you possibly dare, especially on a sunny day like today. It would be treacherous to do that in the rain, but down through the corkscrew again. Bit of four-wheel drift from Kaglar there, very confident in the balance of the Porsche. And now down through Rainy Curve, just feathering the throttle, hold it, and get on as soon as you can. Fairly simple corner at turn 10 as the 75 runs wide again, gets a massive kick of oversteer on re-entry. Thankfully the pit lane kind of saved the 75 there, but Kaglar is now closer to that Mercedes. The look into turn 1 has got to be on here. Goes slightly wide. We go for the high camera as the Mercedes goes defensive. Kaglar goes to the outside, has a much higher apex speed, has to check up midway through the Andretti hairpin, and stays line astern for the time being. Brett Metcalf, thank you very much. Good evening to you, sir. How on earth are you doing tonight? This is a pretty topsy-turvy grid that we're witnessing, and an extraordinary race that we've had so far. Very clean, but also very, very competitive. As Johnson, it looks like, is putting pressure now on Williams for his 5th position. Come up here, even with that damage to the 14, that 22 car is not happy either on its tyres or with its aero setup, as the 14 comes so close under braking. Maybe it is the 22 car is just trying to get to the end of the race in the points just to secure that championship. I'm sure there is reason to the perceived madness of Andy Williams there. We know he's a very rapid driver. But out onto the start-finish straight as Kaglar was side by side and into turn 1. The Porsche has the inside line. Can he get it done under the brakes? The 75 has to give way for the time being, but this isn't over yet. The 75 can get the cutback, but there's too much understeer from that blue Mercedes, and the pass is made. And now it is Ferrari, Porsche, Mercedes, Aston as they go through the split at Sector 1. How much pressure Johnson is going to put on Williams here, I don't actually know. It would behoove the 14 car to learn perhaps from the lines and driving style of the 22 in front. as that is the championship leader and very much worth imitating. Bjorn Johansson in the NSX on the back of the Aston Martin of Wenham. Interesting livery that. So it's a Honda badge on the back there. I didn't quite see the front end. It looked like an Acura badge to me though. I think that's a split livery on that Honda Acura NSX. Beautiful car nonetheless, and a lovely banana yellow. Reminds me of Banana Man. If anybody gets that reference, the blue and yellow, giving me the most warm fuzzies for my childhood and cartoons. As they come down into turn 10, it looks like that gap is stable for the time being. Johnson has backed off from Williams, as Williams is now putting pressure on the 75 of Geimer. So perhaps not the closed book that we thought this Williams race was, but the 9 now side by side with Wenham across the start-finish line. Wenham was still scored in front, but by the time they get to the hairpin, the pass is done, and Johansson is well in front of the Aston Martin. Again, looking to be suffering with either brakes or front suspension feel from that understeer. A shame for him. Meanwhile, Yates is in the pits. Yates is disconnected. So that's a shame for the 24 car. Meanwhile, Simone Miezza, I'm going to suggest I'm going to hope that that's right. In the 720 now, hoping to put some pressure on the 97. That black McLaren, got so used to saying Aston Martin tonight. Black McLaren looking very, very resplendent and very clean as well. He may be at the back of the grid, but he's not got any scars from any scuffles. So good on Simone for keeping that car nice and clean. As Geimer, the gap behind to Williams now is a mere 4/10. I think Williams may be in the chat, because there's no way that he's decided he's going to respond that dynamically to my comments saying maybe he's just trying to get to the end of the race. Maybe the car's just actually come to him now, because the gap to behind has opened out to... Hang on, I'm just going to... There we go, yeah. So that split time was very, very deceitful coming across the first sector. I'll keep an eye on Williams and Geimer for the time being, but this fight looks to be a lot better as Grucock is looking up the inside of the 98 car. Oh, they almost touched. That must have been so close. Maybe that was a touch, just the slightest of nudges to hint the Porsche to the outside of turn 5. Down through turn 6 now, the 42 car has a clear line, and we need to see what happened there. I do think that there may have been the slightest of touches between the two cars, and that looks to be all she wrote. Unfortunately, the places swapped, and suddenly let's see what Aston Martin can do. It's a beautiful livery and a beautiful sound as the 98 runs super wide. I'm surprised there's any marbles left that far wide with so many drivers who have been driving across it. But up the front, Talviti is in a class of his own with Santini. 4 seconds between the two. But remember, Talviti came from 3rd position, taking the 75 car somewhat by force into turn 1, if I remember correctly. Oh, good grief. But the gap between the 72 and the 11 all the way out to 10.5 seconds now. As we look further down, it looks like Williams is just holding station behind Geimer. He doesn't need to press the attack here, as Grucock, it looks like, is just edging away from the Porsche. Meanwhile, Banana Man, Bjorn Johansson, putting pressure on the 12 of Balli. So Balli, earlier in the race here, trying to work his way up the field. Now looks to be falling into the clutches of that yellow NSX. And we'll see what the split time is next time around, as Williams has caught right back up to the back of Geimer again. I think he's just doing it to confuse me. Hovering the time around 6/10, and we've got to go back to that fight because the 22 car is back onto the back of the 75 as the 10th place number 9 car goes across the line. The gap is 7/10. We'll keep with the 22 for the time being, as this is very much looking as though it could be setting up for a pass into the corkscrew. A brave manoeuvre at the best of times, but when you've got a championship on the line, you have to think twice about these things. The 22 car of Andy must be considering it, though not quite, as the 75 car overslows into the corkscrew. 22 car looks so much more stable, able to hang such a tighter line coming out of the corkscrew there. And again, not really using all of the road there, not at all. Is the pass on here for into turn 1 into the Andretti hairpin? They're close enough that it may as well be. Johansson has closed up again to the back of Balli, but again, catching one thing, passing entirely another. Into the first corner, it doesn't look like the 22's close enough to make it happen. Not yet. Banana car still behind the red Ferrari, but that gap behind, so this is looking to become a bit of a train now from Grewcock backwards. And Johansson is going to be very interested in catching that number 12 and passing as well. The Williams still following Geimer around, and you've got to... He's biding his time here. The move isn't going to come out of nowhere at this point, but you have to question where it's going to happen. Jump on board with the 22 car again as they fall off the edge of the world through the corkscrew, and a massive kick of oversteer. That's probably what dropped him back before. The aero wash of the Mercedes in front just being enough to unsettle the Aston Martin. Not quite in the best position, as into one of the slowest corners on the track, back onto the start-finish straight. It's always awful having to clunk up through the gears over the start-finish line, because you always think you can get more time, you always think you can gain more, but it's never gonna happen. Jump back up with Balli, who has conceded the place and gives the 9 car a massive punt. I wonder if that is recompense. That's really dirty driving from the 12 car, as the 720... What on earth is Balli doing? Takes out one of the marker boards. Avoids the number 9 car this time. What started that? Balli. So, Balli still in front here. The number 9 still behind. Up into turn 6, and they're all playing quite nicely. The Porsche loses some drive, and up the inside goes the number 12 car, rubbing alongside as the 12 car massively overshoots entirely. You've got to say that's kind of all his own fault. And then falls into line behind, so we did just miss that mistake from Balli. But then this is where it gets a bit odd. So under braking, just massively overshoots, pushes the 9 car sideways, and that's really weird. That's really strange. So a nightmare of an evening for Balli, it looks like. Taking evasive action perhaps to the inside of the NSX, but I still didn't get out of it, which is just really strange. I don't know what to make of that. We'll have to wait for stewards after the race if if Johansson decides to push that particular button. Meanwhile, Johansson now on the back of the 22 car. These just off the podium. Geimer is now defending from 2 Aston Martins. One is the championship leader, the other of Johnson, who we're looking at here, 3rd in the championship. So both championship contenders here, and with Balli having such a terrible evening, you have to wonder whether Johnson does have a shout of making, especially if he can get past the 75 car, who goes massively wide in the hairpin, has to rejoin safely but loses the position, just out braking himself, perhaps with brake fade or just getting distracted by the now 2 cars behind. But that is, oh, that's awful. And suddenly the 22 car getting a massive bounce of understeer. Suddenly the 14 car is going to be looking to take the place of the 22, the championship leader being taken by 3rd place. Williams has had such a dominant display for a lot of this season, but just can't seem to nail this track, whether it's the Aston Martin itself or just Williams not quite feeling the car tonight. Either way, up through turn 6 they come. The 14 using a bit more of the track than the 22, maybe a bit more confident to use the track afforded to them into the corkscrew as the 22 massively overslows again. Meanwhile, down the field, don't worry, we're not going to take eyes off of that for any amount of time. I just want to check on the pace of Heinz here and the 720 of Mietzer, who has been gifted a few places here. And again, keeping the car clean, keeping the timing consistent, that's what's going to win you your points. That's what's going to make the prizes here in championships like this, where the drivers are so close. The gap has just spread out slightly, ever so slightly, to 0.5 of a second between Williams and Johnson here, but that fight is by no means over. Back out onto the start-finish straight goes Mietzer, Heinz in reverse order. A Shadow Project livery gleaming in the California sun. Ooh, I know my America, I promise. The accent doesn't give me away at all. 720S looking resplendent again in that really dark livery. And able to put the power down compared to the Porsche. Really, Heinz not having a good time of it, especially under throttle conditions. Into turn 5, under braking the Laguna, a bit of a wiggle from the Porsche. You have to wonder if he's used up all his tyres or has got the tyre settings set up a little bit strangely. Grukok is only a mite up the road as well. So both of the cars in Mietzer's sights here. And you have to wonder whether Simone's feeling a little bit confident as they look to the inside through the corkscrew. It's never going to happen through there. That was a deep breath, that was for me, because I've seen people go for those moves and it end catastrophically. I would have hated to have seen both of these drivers' races ended from a move like that, but the Porsche goes defensive, and that's going to cause him to be slower out of the hairpin. Just getting the throttle down, the rear engine of the Porsche helping it get away from the corner. On this particular instance, and under braking, it just... Oh, that McLaren can get a really tight line. The 98 goes wide, and side by side they go. Will Heinz concede? No, but has to stay on the inside. Is going to be massively slowed due to that reduced apex through turn 3. But just manages to keep the McLaren behind. But now jumping on board with the McLaren. I just wanted to see the closing speed. Bear in mind that behind us we do have the Honda of Johnson looking to get past, only half a second behind, as Johnson is closing up as well. It's clear. Johnson is clear of the 22 car. Now, what on earth has happened there? Into the pits goes the 14. This is an unscheduled stop. I wonder what's causing this, as where's Williams now? Out of the start-finish straight. What has gone on here? Follow the 14 down just for a minute because I need to see this. Is this a drive-through? It looks like a drive-through. Ah, the Porsche's dropped it. But not without the 720S falling into the clutches of the number 9 car. That is a whole lot of replay that we need to have a look at as the NSX looks up the inside. There's no space there for a Honda this time round. Let's have a look. First of all, let's have a look at the... Let's have a look at Williams here, who has a massive incident off of the corkscrew, it looks like. Is that getting punted? Oh, it was. Oh, as Williams. So Williams has taken the drive-through as an informal penalty, and I don't think Williams is going to lose any places other than that Mercedes, and that is well within his reach. But he just needs to hope that that rear diffuser isn't damaged. And the other thing we needed to look at was the number 9. As that Porsche, there we go, went here. We have eyes on Miazza. The Porsche in front is going to go really wide into the hairpin. 98 stays in the middle of the road, manages to make it keep the line there, but just throws it away. Massively outbrakes himself, and that it was all she wrote. 2 minutes 15 seconds left to go in this race, and it has absolutely flown by. Thank you very much for sticking with us tonight. Williams, on what is likely to be the second to last lap, is currently 3/10 up on his previous best. Maybe the lack of downforce on the rear diffuser has got him all fired up, or maybe the car's just handling how he wants it to now. You never know. As in towards turn 6, a beautiful, beautiful angle there from the on-track cameras up towards the corkscrew for what I would suggest is the second to last time. We have to wonder where Sattini is on the lap. This is, I reckon he's going to get another lap out of this. Definitely going to get another lap out of this. So the 13 car now coming up to the Porsche of Hines. Milliken and Wenham have already gone a lap down. And the gaps finally seem to have separated, but not to be outdone. The 720S of Miazza is going for Grukok. They have 2 laps left to run by my count back, and this will be pivotal for Miazza. A top 6 is on the cards for that McLaren. A great finish that would be for the season as Miazza get my lovely... I don't see Simone on the table, so that's going to be an interesting turn of events as well, to come from nowhere into 6th place. Bearing in mind, Miazza didn't qualify at the back of the grid here, so if they can take that 42 car, that is a job well done for as far as progress up the grid is concerned. The rest of the gaps, I think, let's call it how it is, have separated out quite a bit, and the session ends now. The timer goes red at the top of your screens, and where is Matteo on the lap? Coming up towards the corkscrew, let's ride on board with what you can only think of as being a triumphant Ferrari driver. So smooth, so effortless through the corkscrew. Shifts down a gear, doesn't even bother on the brakes. It sounded like that Ferrari has been in an absolute class of its own today. Barely any camera time whatsoever. and Santini will take the hairpin. Doesn't even need to bother at all, as across the line Matteo comes to take the win. 22 laps complete, and I dread to think the time difference to Talviti here in second position. Across the line he comes. 12.8 seconds will be the time come the end of the race. Kaglar, a hard fought third position, but well won, and very much something to celebrate as he flashes his lights as he comes across the line. 75 car way back in fourth place here, but the first of our championship leaders to come across the line. Williams is behind. Balli is well down the field, if not out. Balli is retired. Johnson well down the field as well in that 14 car. This is going to be your fourth place driver coming across the line in fourth to end out the series. Williams will come across the line in a lowly fifth. Grewcock still fighting with Miazza. It's going to come down to the line, but I don't think the 720S is going to be able to do it, unfortunately. Across the line, Grewcock just holds on to that sixth place, but well fought by Simone Miazza. Fantastic drive. Johansson across the line in 8th. Johnson comes down in 14th. Hines in... how's the time? 9-10. Hines in 10th. Milliken 11th. 12th. And the rest of them are retirements, unfortunately. That is the end of the final race in the FKR ACC Sprint Race Series. I do believe that means that despite the lowly finishing position, Andy Williams will take home the championship for Redline Racing 2.0. And you have to think of what could have been from all of the different permeations of where this race could have gone. And breathe for the first time in half an hour. Hopefully soon we will have more drivers ready to come and talk to me post-race, but as this is a bit of a sprint series, so much to talk about from this race. That was insane. Well done to all of the drivers. If you liked this race, if you enjoyed my casting, please do leave a like, get yourself subscribed to SimRacingOnline, and head over to the forums linked in the video description. Also linked below is the SimRacingOnline Discord, where we're trying to get a bit more real-time engagement in the SRO community. Fantastic to see the outreach of SRO trying new things, as always, for the benefit of the community. My name has been Alex Guy. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always, casting for you tonight, and I hope that everybody has a lovely morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. Until next time, I'll see you then. Good night.